Hey folks, welcome back to the show. Today, we're diving into a world of secrets and conspiracies that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about the CIA. Buckle up, because we're uncovering shocking projects that sound like Hollywood thrillers but are terrifyingly real. Mind control, covert operations, assassination attempts, and maybe even alien contact. This is next-level stuff that'll have you wondering who's really pulling the strings. We're going deep down the rabbit hole, folks, so get ready for a wild ride. Alright, let's kick things off with a real doozy. Project MKUltra. Imagine a world where the government can control your thoughts and memories. Sounds like some crazy science fiction, right? Well, that's exactly what the CIA was trying to achieve with MKUltra. They dosed people with LSD and other hallucinogens. They experimented on civilians, soldiers, and mental patients without consent. Most records were destroyed, so we may never know the full extent. Alright, so we've talked about mind control, but it gets even crazier, folks. Let's talk about Operation Northwoods. Now, this one is seriously messed up. We're talking about a plan hatched by the US government, the Pentagon no less, to stage fake terrorist attacks on American soil and blame it on Cuba. I'm not kidding. They were literally going to orchestrate bombings, hijackings, even shoot down their own planes, all to drum up public support for a war with Cuba. They figured if they could convince the American people that Cuba was a threat, they could justify an invasion. Think about that for a second. The government was willing to kill its own citizens just to manufacture a reason for war. They even drafted up fake casualty lists, planned fake funerals, the whole 9 yards. It's absolutely insane. Luckily, cooler heads prevailed, and President Kennedy himself shut the whole thing down. But the fact that this plan even made it to the president's desk is a chilling reminder of the lengths some people will go to for power and control. Alright, so we've talked about the CIA messing with people's minds, right? MKUltra, crazy stuff. But what about messing with what people think on a larger scale? That's where Operation Mockingbird comes in. The CIA was secretly recruiting journalists to control the narrative, plant stories, make your agenda seem popular. It's like Edward Bernays on steroids, paying or blackmailing journalists to play ball, influencing media outlets globally. The CIA denies it, saying it was a misunderstanding. But some think Operation Mockingbird never ended. And when you look at how the media operates today, well, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Alright, so this next one is straight out of a spy thriller, man. We're talking about Project Artichoke, another CIA mind control program that was all about creating the perfect assassin. The CIA wanted to know if they could program people to kill on command, like robots, with no memory of what they'd done. They used hypnosis, drugs, and electroshock therapy, trying to break down personalities and rebuild them. Some say they even experimented with sensory deprivation. They wanted to create sleepers, agents who could be activated with a trigger word. The fact that they researched this is pretty unsettling, right? So we've talked about the CIA messing with people's minds, trying to control the media, even creating assassins. But what about spying on American citizens? That's where Operation Chaos comes in. This was a massive domestic surveillance program. The CIA overstepped its bounds, big time. They were supposed to focus on foreign threats, but during the Vietnam War, they spied on anti-war activists, journalists, even regular citizens. They infiltrated groups, intercepted mail, tapped phones. This was a full-blown operation, authorized by the highest levels of government. They collected files on thousands of Americans. It was a massive violation of privacy, and it showed just how far the government was willing to go. We saw it with the NSA after 9/11. And who knows what's happening now? It's a slippery slope. Once you start eroding civil liberties, it's hard to stop. And that's a dangerous road to go down. So, Project Bluebird, man. This was like the beta version of MKUltra. We're talking early 1950s here. And the CIA is already neck deep in this mind control stuff. They wanted to know if they could make people do things against their will, turn them into Manchurian candidates. They messed around with all sorts of crazy techniques: hypnosis, electroshock therapy, you name it. And of course, LSD. They were pumping people full of that stuff, trying to crack the code of the human mind. The messed up part is, a lot of these experiments were done on people who had no idea what was going on. We're talking about soldiers, mental patients, even regular civilians. They were just guinea pigs, man. It's dark, dude. Really dark. It's wild to think that this was all happening right under our noses. I mean, you gotta wonder what else they were up to back then. And what about now? Makes you think, doesn't it? Alright, Operation Paperclip. This one's straight out of a spy thriller, man. After World War II, the US government was like, hey, those Nazi scientists? They're pretty smart. Let's bring them over here. I'm not kidding. They recruited hundreds of these guys, rocket scientists, engineers, doctors, you name it. They even brought over Werner von Braun, the dude who designed the V-2 rocket for the Nazis. He ended up working on the American space program. Now, on the one hand, these Nazi scientists helped us get to the moon and win the Cold War. But on the other hand, they were Nazis. They committed some seriously messed up crimes, and we just kinda let it slide? It's a real ethical dilemma, man. It's like, do the ends justify the means? I don't know, it's a tough one. Huff. Okay, buckle up for this one, folks, because Operation Midnight Climax is wild, even for the CIA. We're talking about the government setting up secret brothels, dosing people with LSD, and watching what happens. Seriously. So, the CIA was really into LSD back then. They thought it could be a truth serum, or a mind control drug, the whole 9 yards. So they set up these safe houses in San Francisco and New York, hired some prostitutes, and started slipping acid into people's drinks. The idea was to observe the effects of LSD on unsuspecting subjects. But come on, man. This was just messed up on so many levels. They were exploiting people, violating their privacy, all in the name of... what? National security? This is one of those stories that makes you question everything, It's like, what else don't we know about? It's enough to make you want to stay away from government-spiked drinks forever. All right, folks, buckle up because this one is wild. We're talking about Project Artichoke, another deep dive into the CIA's obsession with mind control. Imagine a world where your thoughts, your beliefs, your entire sense of self could be manipulated without you even knowing it. That's the terrifying reality the CIA was chasing with Artichoke. They were digging into behavioral modification, trying to figure out how to program people like computers. We're talking Manchurian candidate stuff here, folks. This wasn't some fringe operation either. They poured serious resources into it. Now, the details on Artichoke are still pretty murky. A lot of the documents are still classified, probably for good reason. But what we do know paints a pretty disturbing picture. We're talking about experiments on unsuspecting people, pushing the boundaries of psychology and ethics to the breaking point. Think about the implications, man. If they cracked the code on this, if they could control people's minds, what kind of power would that give them? It's some real Black Mirror stuff, and it makes you wonder what else they were up to that we still don't know about. Alright, so we're moving from mind control to full-blown regime change with this one. Operation Ajax, man. This is some real cloak and dagger stuff, straight out of a spy thriller. The CIA meddled in Iran, overthrowing Prime Minister Mossadegh. They staged riots, pumped money into propaganda, and it worked. The Shah was installed, but it backfired, leading to the 1979 revolution. Iran became the Islamic Republic we know today. Okay, so we've talked about mind control, regime change, some seriously heavy stuff. Now, get ready for this, because this next one is just... weird. I'm talking about Project Acoustic Kitty. You heard that right. Acoustic. Kitty. So, picture this. It's the 1960s, the Cold War is in full swing, and the CIA is looking for any edge they can get. And someone, probably after a few too many martinis, comes up with the brilliant idea of using cats as spies. Yeah, you heard me right. Cats. They figured cats are stealthy. They can go places humans can't. Perfect for eavesdropping, right? So they get a cat, surgically implant a microphone in its ear, a radio transmitter at the base of its skull, and a battery pack in its chest. They even tried to train it to resist its natural instincts. They spent, get this, millions of dollars on this project. And what happened? They took their little furry spy out for its first mission, and it promptly got hit by a taxi. A taxi! That's right, folks. Millions of dollars, countless man-hours, all for a cat that couldn't even cross the street. It's enough to make you question everything. So we've talked about MKUltra, right? The CIA messing with people's minds, giving them LSD, trying to control their thoughts. Crazy stuff. MKUltra was like this giant umbrella with smaller projects, each more bizarre than the last. One of these was called MK Chickwit. It sounds like something a bunch of dudes in a smoke-filled room came up with while tripping on their own supply. But this was serious business. These guys were looking for any chemical advantage in the Cold War. We're talking about obscure hallucinogens, plants, and fungi. They wanted to know what these substances did to the human mind, how they could be used to manipulate people. All right, folks, buckle up because this next one is a doozy. We're talking about Operation Gladio, and it's like something straight out of a spy thriller. Imagine this, a secret program where they stage terrorist attacks and blame it on their enemies. That's Gladio in a nutshell, a clandestine operation by NATO during the Cold War. Gladio operatives were involved in bombings and assassinations. They targeted communists, trade unionists, and student activists. It was a campaign of terror to discredit the left and instill fear. And it wasn't just limited to Europe. Similar programs were active worldwide, including the United States. All right, let's talk about Chile, 1973. This is a story about a democratically elected government, a socialist leader named Salvador Allende, and how the CIA completely undermined and overthrew him. Project Fubelt, that's what they called this covert operation. And it was brutal, man. And then, on September 11th, 1973, it all culminated in a bloody military coup. Allende was killed, and a brutal dictatorship, led by General Augusto Pinochet, took power. They were right there, pulling the strings. It's a dark chapter in our history, man. Alright, so we're talking about Operation Phoenix, man. This was some seriously dark shit going down in Vietnam. We're not talking about your run-of-the-mill covert ops here. This was a full-blown counterinsurgency program, and the goal was to dismantle the Viet Cong's infrastructure from the inside out. They were going after anyone suspected of being involved with the VC, from high-ranking officials to village sympathizers. We're talking about torture, man. We're talking about assassination. And it wasn't just the CIA calling the shots. They were working hand-in-hand with South Vietnamese forces, training them in interrogation techniques that, let's just say, weren't exactly by the book. You gotta wonder how many innocent people got caught in the crossfire, right? The official body count from Operation Phoenix is estimated to be around 20,000, but some people think the real number is way higher. It's a dark chapter, man, and it really makes you question the lengths governments will go to in the name of national security. Alright, so this one is out there, even for me. We're talking about Project Serpo, and if you believe the hype, this is the real deal, man. We're talking about a top-secret exchange program with aliens. The story goes that back in the 40s, after the Roswell crash, the government made contact with a group of extraterrestrials called the Ebon. These Ebon were supposed to be from a planet called Serpo, and they were pretty chill, apparently. So chill, in fact, that they agreed to let a bunch of US military personnel visit their planet. Now, the government obviously denies this ever happened, but there are some people out there who believe it. They say there's evidence, man, like leaked documents and eyewitness accounts from people who claim to have been involved in the program. Is it true? Who knows, man? It sounds like some crazy sci-fi shit, But then again, stranger things have happened. You got to admit, the idea of a secret alien exchange program is pretty damn fascinating. Alright, so we're diving back into the Cold War with this one, and let me tell you, things were getting wild. We're talking about Operation Mongoose, a top-secret CIA program aimed at taking down Fidel Castro and his communist regime in Cuba. Now the CIA was willing to try anything to get rid of Castro. We're talking about sabotage, propaganda, even assassination attempts. And I'm not talking about your run-of-the-mill hits either. They were coming up with some crazy shit, man. We're talking about exploding cigars, poisoned wetsuits, even a plan to dose Castro with LSD before a public speech. They even tried to get to him through his love of diving by planting explosives in a conch shell they knew he liked to collect. Fortunately for Castro, none of these wacky assassination attempts worked. But it just goes to show you how far the CIA was willing to go to eliminate their enemies during the Cold War. Talk about some seriously shady shit, man. Alright, so we're talking about Operation Sunstreak. This is some next-level weird stuff, even for the CIA. We're talking about psychic spies, man. Like straight out of a comic book. The government was dropping serious coin on this, trying to train guys to see things miles away, maybe even on the other side of the world. Imagine that, man. Just closing your eyes and boom, you're looking at some secret Soviet base. They called it remote viewing, and it gets even weirder. We're talking about dudes supposedly astral projecting themselves into the past or future. I mean, it sounds crazy, right? But the CIA took it seriously, and that's what's so wild about this whole thing. Alright folks, buckle up because this one is a doozy. We're diving into Operation Cloverleaf, and let me tell you, this is some next-level conspiracy theory stuff. You know, those long white trails you see in the sky behind airplanes? Some people think they're not just regular contrails. They think the government, specifically the CIA, is using these planes to spray something into the atmosphere. What that something is, nobody knows for sure. Some say it's chemicals to control the weather, others say it's mind control substances. I mean, it sounds crazy, right? Now, the government denies all of this, of course, but the people who believe in Operation Cloverleaf, they'll tell you that's just what they want you to think. They'll point to strange patterns in the sky, unusual weather events, and even claim to have found evidence of these chemicals in the environment. Is there any truth to it? Who knows, man? We're diving into Operation High Jump, a massive 1946 military operation led by Admiral Richard Byrd. Officially, it was a scientific expedition, but some believe it was to find a secret Nazi base. Others think they encountered aliens. It's like something straight out of an Indiana Jones movie. Well, folks, there you have it. 20 shocking CIA projects that might just make you question everything you thought you knew, from mind control experiments to alleged cover-ups of alien encounters. We've journeyed through some of the most bizarre and unsettling corners of history. Thanks for watching. If you found these revelations as shocking as we did, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for little-known history, and let us know in the comments your favorite conspiracy theory.